Welcome to another Mar-Kov training video. In today's video, we are going to cover the production report. Our agenda for today: what is a production report, how to set up the production report, and using the production report. The production report is a detailed report of the yield produced per shift of a continuous manufacturing process. A continuous manufacturing process being something like a packaging and filling line. The purpose of the production report is to inform production about the efficiency of a line, break down costs of the total yield and yield produced each shift based on labor and other identified costs, provide opportunity for operators to record unreported production, which will carry over to the following shift. An example of unreported production is when an operator only builds half a pallet and the pallet will be completed in the next shift. The production report will also report production for both in progress and completed manufacturing orders. Before we start executing our manufacturing order, let's first take a look at an existing production report. The production report can be found under Reports in the main menu bar. We will then select a date range for the production reports that we wish to see, and then we will hit Preview to preview the report. Here we have a production report for the specified date range. On this day, only one order was manufactured for the item Blue Mush. This order was also manufactured on the line V7H. By default, if no line is specified for the order, Mar-Kov will assign a temporary line name. In this case, the temporary line name is V7H. However, if a line is specified for the order, it will appear in the line column. We also see that the order was broken up into 3 different shifts. For shift 1, 15 cases were reported with a total labor cost of $40. The other costs associated with this shift are the actual cost of the product, not including labor. The total amounts are summed at the bottom for that day of production. We also have an additional record called Shift 9, and Shift 9 will add any missing labor hours and yield that weren't recorded while executing the order. In this case, additional hours were recorded for this order, and those appear on the Shift 9 record. For all in progress and completed packaging orders, you may view the production information. You may do this by going to Set Viewers and selecting Production Set Viewer. This will bring up detailed information for all orders in which a production report entry was created. This set viewer will list the order, the date, the shift number, the item that was produced, the line it was produced on, the quantity that was packed out, other costs, labor costs, the total cost, and the unit cost of that item. We also see that additional Shift 9 record for those missing labor hours that were recorded. If you desire, you may export this information to Excel by right-clicking any of the column headers and selecting Export to Excel Spreadsheet. We are going to cover how to set up a packaging recipe, also known as a continuous process recipe, such that the recipe includes operator labor. Including labor and other additional costs for a product is optional. However, for an accurate report on the unit or total cost of a product, these costs are important to enter in a recipe as it will impact the cost of a product. We will first add a labor service in the Service Update program by going to Master Tables, Item Update, and then Service Update. And we're going to select New. We will then enter an item code for the service. You may then enter a description for the service. We may then update the standard cost to reflect the hourly wage of the operator. Next, we will assign a cost category to the service. The cost category is used to group various costs associated with a service. By default, we have labor, material, packaging, burden, and other as available cost categories. We will select labor as our cost category for this packaging operator. Now we will save our changes using the Save button. Our next step is to add a labor item to our packaging recipe. Using a packaging recipe I have already created and populated with the required information, I'm going to go ahead and add our labor item to the recipe. To do this, I will go to the Other Items tab and select the 3 dots underneath the item column. Next, you will select your labor item that you wish to add. Once selected, you will specify the recipe quantity, base quantity, or both recipe and base quantity of labor for the recipe. The difference between the recipe quantity and base quantity is that when a recipe is changed or an order is scaled up or down based on the desired yield of the product, the base quantity will stay the same while the recipe quantity will scale appropriately. For example, if I have a recipe where each package of sanitizer I make requires 15 minutes of operator time, I will enter 0.25 in the recipe quantity column, as 15 minutes is a quarter of an hour. If instead I require 8 hours of operator time, regardless of my recipe yield, I will add 8 to the base quantity column. I may also have a combination of both recipe quantity and base quantity. In summary, scaling a recipe yield will also scale the recipe quantity, but will not change the base quantity entered. When our recipe is ready, we may save and publish it. We may now create manufacturing orders for this recipe. Now let's work through executing a packaging order and reporting our production for each shift working on the order. Prior to this example, I have created a packaging order and have released it for production and have completed all of the applicable setup and start lot instruction steps. I have also scanned all inventory for the order, and the packaging line has been running for some time. During my shift, I am going to record what I have packed out using the packaging button. In this shift, I have created 2 pallets of 10 cases each for a total amount of 20 cases. When I select Save, the appropriate labels will be generated and I can sticker them on my pallets. Now it's the end of my shift and I will stop the packaging line and report the total yield produced. To do this, I will select the Production Report button and select New to create a new entry. Next, I will select the date and enter in my shift number. As this is the first shift of the day, I will enter 1. After entering the date and shift number, the reported production and quantity produced will be automatically populated. I may update the quantity produced field if I have packed out more product than I specified, and the difference will be carried over to unreported production. But we will review this case in our next example. For this shift, I only packed out 20 cases. My next step is to enter the number of hours spent on this shift in the quantity column. When I am ready, I may select Save to save this entry. Some time has passed and now it is the operator of shift 2 to start work on this order. Again, following the same steps as before, the operator will pack out the product and at the end of their shift will report the total amount of yield produced. For this example, let's say the operator packed out 1 full pallet and 1 half pallet. Since the half pallet is incomplete, it will be the next shift who will pack out the product to complete the pallet. So we will only generate 1 container label for this completed pallet, and in the next shift, the operator will generate the container label for the completed pallet. Now at the end of shift 2, we will now report that 15 total cases were produced, and the 5 cases from the half pallet will be recorded as unreported production. This amount will carry over for the next shift. Again, the operator will record the quantity of hours spent on this order and save the report. Now it is time for shift 3, who will again follow the same steps as before. While packing out, this operator finishes the half pallet and ends their shift. They too will complete a production report. As you can see, the 5 cases that were categorized as unreported production from shift 2 have carried over to shift 3. In total, shift 3 packed out 10 containers, but the 5 containers that were previously packed out from shift 2 were carried over so that we are only reporting that 5 cases were produced for shift 3. Again, the operator will record the number of hours spent on this order and save their entry. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to complete a manufacturing review for the hours spent on this order. To do this, we're going to go to Transactions, Manufacturing, and Manufacturing Review. Next, we will use the Find button to select the order we wish to review. We may then update the quantity used column to reflect the hours that were actually spent on this order. Next, we will hit Save to save our manufacturing review. Now let's take a look at our production report for this day. Again, we will go to Reports and select Production Reports, and we will select today as our date range. Then we will preview the report. And here we have the production report for today's production. As you can see, it reflects everything that the operators have packed out from all 3 shifts, the labor that was recorded for each shift, and the summation of the cost associated with each shift, and a breakdown of the unit cost for each shift as well. And finally, it will sum the total amounts for all of the quantities that were packed out, the other costs, labor, and the total cost. Now taking a look at our production set viewer, we see the same information viewed on the production report, but in set viewer form. In review, we covered what is a production report, how to set up the production report, and using the production report in Mar-Kov. Thank you, and see you in the next Mar-Kov video tutorial.